Welcome, everyone, to the Whiskey and Wisdom podcast. It's your constant host, Chris Kellum, and I am with
Tyler, y'all.
And this week, we have a special guest. Somebody I've never met before, but he is a tall fella who likes basketball and also alcohol. So, introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Kuck, and I am the Eastern Territory Sales Manager for a distillery out of Durham called Liberty and Plenty.
Which is, of course, what we're sipping on today. And something else, if you're watching the YouTube video, you may have noticed we are in a different location than we've never been in before. It is actually, the owner is Christian, who has been on the podcast before with Aloha Properties. But we are actually in Kent Station Studio, 1901 Kent Station Street back here. And giving it a shot for the first time. We like it in here so far. And if you're also thinking about starting a podcast, this could also be your studio.
True. Check them out. So, talking about the fun stuff now. I got to start from the beginning. This is batch 4.
Yes.
Okay. How long is this rested or anything? You got any fun details before I start sniffing on it?
Sure. Well, it is a 3-year-old Tennessee source bourbon. We do a buy, blend, and finish program because we are still a very young distillery. So
Smart.
we source our bourbon from other places, but, you know, they are hand selected. You know, it's something that we have a familiarity with. It is rested in honey and fig barrels for 4 months. So that is the flavor profile you're going to get. We use some locally sourced buckwheat honey and fig, and we make it into sort of a mash. And we wash the barrel in it for a couple of days so that it really seeps into the barrel, seeps into the wood. And then the bourbon is rested for 4 months. So anything that you're getting, any of the flavor profiles you're getting of honey or fig, they are imparted from the wood. They're not put directly into the bourbon itself.
Oh,
Interesting.
Yeah, so please give it a try. Let me know what you think.
cheers. You're over here.
Yep, sorry.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Getting ahead of myself. I do definitely get some of that honey in there.
The honey's pretty prevalent on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you like to use a couple of drops of water, which is the traditional way of sipping, the fig really opens up whenever you put a couple of drops of water. The honey is prevalent. It's pretty upfront, and it really smooths out the heat on the 90 proof. So you don't taste it here, but you feel it in your chest.
Yeah,
which is where good bourbon, you're supposed to feel it here.
Right.
Yeah.
Not up here.
Yeah. It's supposed to burn your palate out with it.
Well, sometimes
it's-
that happens, especially with the higher proofed
Yeah.
ones.
I don't always like Fireball.
I hope that's not the comparison.
I was going to say.
No, because in my head, like when I drink something like when I sip it and it's just hot up here, my brain is like, this reminds me of Fireball. And
it's those spicy notes, the heat. Yeah, I understand that.
And then you get past it and you're like, okay, now what are the other flavors that you're getting?
I always tell people whenever they try things, especially when they're drinking alcohol directly or without mixing it or putting it on ice or anything like that, never judge it on the first sip, always on number 2. Because the first one can be, you're not prepared for it. It's a little abrasive at the beginning. Hopefully that's not the feeling you got
not for
with
this
that.
one. No.
Yeah. I think it's a really great bourbon, and it's very easy for sipping. I think this is actually how I would enjoy it if I were to.
I was about to say that too. I was like, for being a younger whiskey as well, this is actually very sippable.
Yes. Well, when we hand select these, it says, it's a 3-year-old bourbon, but we felt like it drank more like a 4 or 5-year-old.
Right.
So it's got a little bit more maturity than its age would suggest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, we've tried whiskey, bourbon from all ages.
Yeah,
And,
I would imagine you have.
It's very interesting.
Do you guys have a favorite like a bourbon you've tried? You can say us. That's completely fine. Do you have a bourbon that you've tried where it's the standout or the one that you like the most?
I think for me, the High West Bourbon, one of our previous guests brought it in because we can't get it here in North Carolina, evidently, which is unfortunate. But that's probably one of my favorite. I do like a high rye myself.
Rye is really underappreciated. I like
agree,
rye,
yeah.
but a lot of people, it's the spicy notes, and it's a
right.
very, I don't know, I guess it's an acquired taste. I guess.
I would agree because like if you've never had whiskey before, you don't really know what whiskey is. You probably don't want to go straight into.
You don't want to
rye.
start with a rye.
Yeah.
I think the first rye that I had that I really enjoy was Templeton.
Oh, okay,
Pendleton.
yeah.
Two really good options
Right.
if you're looking for that as well. But
It's interesting to me because I am definitely like the sweeter, smoother person, and I drink based on season. So like I'll drink rye in the wintertime because I need that spice to warm me up. But most of the time,
Oh, did I not?
you need to hop down.
was it you?
I know. I think I would be professional one of these days.
One day. Sorry, guys. If you saw the camera shake, Tyler hopped down off his stool. I'm picking on him. So, my most recent piece, I'm always trying new stuff. I would say the thing that like caught me really well. So, like, this is actually really good.
Thank you.
Like, very smooth. Because I'm in like a season where I really don't drink a ton. So I'll drink like once, twice a month. And I picked this up and I was expecting to get hit in the face. I was like, oh no, this is smooth.
It's very approachable.
Yeah.
That's
Very, very
I think that's a
approachable.
really nice way to describe it. Is that like even for people who wouldn't necessarily consider themselves to be bourbon drinkers, it's a bourbon that they can enjoy as well.
Yes.
If they wanted to participate, and if that's not their thing.
Yeah. If I'm getting fancy and someone has it, I finally tried Penelope's Rio. And I was like, well, if anyone ever has this at a bar, I will be ordering it. Just because it's super smooth. Like, I can get my wife to drink it because it doesn't really taste like whiskey. It tastes more like a dessert.
You see, that's been a trend that we've noticed, and it's a trend that we've obviously followed because if you look at the different selections of bourbon that we've done, the different batches we've done a secondary aging in a different barrel. And it's a trend that's been pretty common. I mean, if you go into your local ABC, you'll see port barrel, rosé barrel. There's for us, we've done Madeira, we've done Muscatel, we've done rum barrels. So the secondary aging in a different barrel, it kind of gives it a nuanced, like different dimension to it, adds a different flavor profile to the bourbon.
It for sure does.
And I think that's, go into any local ABC, you'll see the wall. They're aged in something else.
Yeah.
And that's been a trend that we've definitely noticed and we've followed ourselves.
Yeah.
So does each batch that you've had come out then is rested in something different?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as the bourbon goes,
Right, yeah.
we've done it in a different, so batch number 1 was Muscatel barrels.
Okay.
Batch number 2 was rum barrels. Batch number 3 was a higher proofed version of the honey and fig.
Yeah.
Okay.
Batch number 4 was a lower version, the honey and fig that we're sipping now.
Right.
And then batch number 5 was a Madeira barrel.
Okay.
So we've done, every bourbon that we've done has rested in a different barrel before, and it's all done with small batch.
Okay.
So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
So how often does a new batch come out?
It just kind of depends on whenever the bourbon's ready, when it's matured. I let production handle their side, and I do not
Right.
ask them questions. They just hand me a bottle, and they say, go sell this.
Right.
And that's what I do. So that's my...
So, because like I said, I drink, but I don't drink. And when I come to find like new alcohol and new whiskeys, I always like to hear the story of like, why'd you start it? Where'd it come from? Do you have like a background for it?
Well, I mean, for Liberty and Plenty,
Yeah.
yes. So our master distiller, her name is Tina Williford, and she's brilliant, and she, creates all of our vodkas, rums, our gin, and our bourbon and whiskey. It's all her. It's very impressive to watch her work. She had worked in a couple of different businesses before she started this, but she formed this company in 2020.
Okay.
And great time to be starting a business.
Yeah, great time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's alcohol. That was the perfect year.
So it worked.
People really wanted alcohol that year. Yeah. But they released their first spirits in March of 2023. So this is a very new company, and they didn't really open up their sales territory until they hired me last year.
Oh, wow.
So really they were just honing the craft, operating out of Durham. They have a 3,000 square foot facility in Durham, and there's a cocktail bar in the front, but essentially they just sold everything by hand from the cocktail bar or in the local ABCs in the Durham area. And then, whenever they felt they were ready for, to start expanding and to move into different markets and different territories and to distribute to other places outside of the Raleigh-Durham area, that's whenever they started looking for, people in Charlotte, Raleigh, and then what they call the Eastern Territory, which is what I cover, which is anything east of Raleigh, really.
I was like, Eastern, I found this out recently because of work, like, anything east of Raleigh could be anywhere from, 45 minutes to 5 hours away from you based on where you are on one of the Outer Banks or like just on the oddly edged shape of this place.
Yeah, that's according to my car's odometer. That is very true because I drive all the time. I'm always somewhere else. So, obviously I live here in Wilmington, but I go Carteret, Craven, Cumberland, Moore. I drive all over the place. So I cover a lot of territory, and just anywhere east of Raleigh, it's about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours away. Okay. But we are planning on going into OBX, and that's like 4 hours away, 5 hours to your point. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be a fun drive. We got to have a lot of podcasts ready. So thank you guys for the content.
Anytime.
Don't worry. We have just over 150 episodes.
Yeah, we're hitting about 160 now. Yeah.
Yeah. So plenty of things to listen to.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So when you got started, how many barrels were already out or batches were already out?
I think they were on the rum barrel, and they were just around the time they were releasing the first version of Honey and Fig.
Okay.
So I don't believe I've ever tried batch number 1, the Moscatel. I'm sure they have some at the warehouse or hidden away somewhere, but I never actually got to try that one. But that's the only one I didn't get to try because I think it was released before I ever started with Liberty and Plenty.
What's your favorite one then out of the ones you have tried?
Of the bourbons?
Yeah.
That's tough. It's like picking a favorite kid.
Right.
I think batch number 3, the original Honey and Fig, the 100 proof, I really like the way that drank. It was a little bit older. It was a little bit more mature, and it was a higher proof. Right. But the Honey and Fig, again, still really smoothed out the heat from that. But batch number 4, I mean, I thought I was very impressed with the second version of Honey and Fig. Right. Even though it was a lower proof and slightly younger, it still drinks really well. So I think number 3 was probably my favorite. The first batch of Honey and Fig was really good.
Nice. And so actually you touched on something I wanted to touch on anyway, or you hinted towards it. Liberty and Plenty makes more than just bourbon, right? So what else do they make when it comes to spirits, and what are they kind of known for out there in the world?
Well, that's a great question because we have probably 9 items that are listed in the ABC right now.
Oh, okay.
So the newest release is our grapefruit vodka. That one is so impressive. It's when you open the bottle, it smells like somebody just cut into a fresh grapefruit. Oh, wow. It is incredibly impressive. I would like the process by which they do everything up there it's incredible. And, with our vodka line, we did recently become the official vodka sponsor of Azalea Fest this year. Oh, no way. So I think that will probably be, at least in the New Hanover County and this general area, our vodka will probably be the thing that we're most known for because I think we're about to expose a lot of people to our spirits that probably haven't never tried it before. Right. Or this might be their first opportunity to give it a try, and I think they're going to be really happy with it. And then our rum line, Cap and Cane, I think in our rum line, definitely during the fall and the winter, we have a chai spice rum and a coffee rum, and those became 2 of our big sellers. And I think it was because, like what you were talking about earlier, they're very seasonal. Yeah. Like the chai spice, to me, tastes just like fall.
Mm-hmm.
And then coffee is having a moment
It really is.
in spirits. I mean, espresso martinis are everywhere.
Right.
And our coffee rum it's incredible. You can drink it neat on the rocks. You can make an espresso martini with it. It could be a brunch cocktail. It could be a nightcap cocktail.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of versatility. I would say that I'm a bourbon person first, gin second, and then, so I love our gin.
Okay.
So our gin is navel strength.
Mm-hmm.
So that means it has to be at least 57%, but it doesn't drink nearly as hot as it sounds, but the proof is high.
Yeah.
But it has these notes of like orange blossom, jasmine, and some floral notes that it's definitely not pine heavy. It doesn't have that juniper, that heavy juniper. You wouldn't confuse it with a London Dry, but I love a good gin. I can drink gin on the rocks, and I feel like gin is underappreciated.
I agree.
I realized that like more recently too, is that American gin tends, like the ones that I've liked, have all been more citrus forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, especially down here in the South, like the drinks we make tend to be brighter, fresher, whereas like London gins are really dry, very junipery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you talked about seasonal, but I also think that like geographic matters with like how you drink as well, because a London Dry with the kind of climate and temperature that maybe you get in the UK, you think it just kind of matches.
That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And down here, you want something more bright and
because we
more
like
flavorful.
The sunlight.
Yes, and we're in the South, and we are by the beach. So, I think seasonal drinking is definitely a thing, but I think, it also corresponds to geographic areas and what you can grow. Yeah. And, I think that's called terroir, where certain things grow in certain climates and certain soil compositions. That's also important too.
Huh. I had a professor that only drank Bombay Sapphire, and he was from the Northeast. So similar type of concept as like the UK, just kind of like always cold and dreary up there.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, if this guy's drinking it, and he was like impressive at the time, and I'm 21, I was like, I'm going to try Bombay Sapphire. And I was like, I'm never drinking gin again. But then finally I came around to it. I was like, it can actually be good.
I think a lot of people had that kind of experience where they drank a bad version of a certain spirit when they were younger. And they're like, well, I don't drink tequila anymore because I had a bad Jose Cuervo night when I was 21. And, and then they judge all other spirits by that same measurement. And so, when I was in college, we tried to class up our drinking and go through a martini phase. And I kept just being like, I think we're just buying the wrong gin because we were poor. We drank New Amsterdam. Which, sorry, New Amsterdam. I'm not trying to call you out specifically, but it's not maybe the best representation of that spirit. So gin, I had to acquire that taste all over again years later, and realize that not all of them taste exactly like New Amsterdam.
Exactly.
So,
So with Liberty and Plenty, are they aging their own bourbon right now or whiskey right now while they're kind of doing this batch thing?
So we are building a new facility, a larger facility where we can do some continuous distillation. That'll be in Wilson, North Carolina, which is where our owners are originally from. And it's a much larger, it's about 7 times larger than the facility we're in now.
I was going to say 3,000 square feet.
3,000 square feet.
That big.
That's why, like when you said 3,000, I'm like, there's no way they have that many barrels aging in the back. Like,
it's very difficult to do the kind of things that we want to do moving forward with the kind of space that we have. So it'll be very nice once that facility finally opens and we can do our whiskey aging program, and we can do a lot more production. We're going from producing like, a small amount from this facility now, but we're able to produce 20 times more in the new facility, incredible. 20 times more. So we're really excited about that. I mean, to have that opportunity to kind of meet the demands that hopefully our product will eventually demand. Yeah, it's the moving into a larger facility. I know our production team is going to be very happy about that. I'm sure, yeah. They're the ones that they're cramped back there right now, but they're still producing amazing spirits in a small venue. So I'm really excited to see what they can do once they have a larger facility. Right. But we have put down our own stocks. We are going to produce our own North Carolina, matured, aged bourbon. And it'll be nice to as much as we appreciate the people we've been sourcing from, we want to be, we're a North Carolina company. We want to make spirits for North Carolinians, for everybody, but this is the community that we serve. Yeah. So that's really, we want to use locally sourced products and use local farms and use, heritage corn to create our bourbon. And, farmers get, they get to see their product used as well, which is really exciting for them.
Yeah. We had a guy come in, it was more beer oriented, but he makes his own malt out near Charlotte as well too. So that was really interesting, kind of bringing all of the, North Carolina factors together and having everything produced locally. And it seems like that the bourbon and whiskey community are starting to kind of follow that same route too. It's like, hey, you know what? Tennessee's not that far away. Kentucky's really not that far away. We can participate in this game too.
I've been very impressed with the spirits that North Carolina's been producing, not just Liberty and Plenty, but there are a lot of producers in Wilmington, even specifically.
Right.
End of Days is here. And they've got, I think there's probably 3 distilleries just in this town alone.
Yeah.
And I remember during the interview before I got the job, they asked me if I had any questions for them. And I asked them, I know that people, whenever my dad is a craft beer guy.
Okay.
Everywhere he goes, he's like, what's local? What's new? He was local. And a lot of people do that for beer. And I asked them, like, have people really been doing that for spirits?
Right.
Because that's something I've never really heard. I've never heard somebody, because I've worked in a lot of restaurants and bars, and I've never heard somebody come in like, so what's your local bourbon or what's your local vodka? Yeah. That's not the question that ever gets asked, but for beer, it does. And I think we're starting to see that people are starting to enjoy spirits that are made in their communities. And there's some really, like I said, there's some really good stuff being produced. And I'm excited to see like more of that. And I'm excited for people, hopefully, a lot of the accounts, the on-premise accounts, restaurants and bars that I've talked to, they are starting to, the trend is having stuff that's locally made and kind of getting rid of the big national brands.
Right.
And, you spend a couple of more dollars because, it's hard to beat the price point of something that's mass produced. Yeah. They've got it down to an art form. We were talking about beer. Anheuser-Busch probably spills more than a week than a local craft brewery makes in a year.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's impressive doing mass production like that. But I think you're starting to see people move away from that, and they're starting to put the focus on locally sourced and locally made spirits. And that's a really cool thing, especially whenever your state is producing a lot of really good stuff. And I could sing the praises of a lot of, different distilleries around here that, we've met just by doing this job and by working events. Yeah. Yeah. You run into them all the time. Yeah. Cook's Mill is a good example. Yeah. They make some incredible bourbon. And I met them a charity event that we were all working in Raleigh. Nice. Yeah. So, you meet these guys in passing, you're like, damn, they're doing some really good stuff. Yeah. So and I think it's one of those rising tide, makes all boats float, kind of thing. I think there's enough room in the market for North Carolina products to find their path.
Yeah. And we've been doing the podcast for about 3 years, and just kind of what's happened in North Carolina and the whiskey world has really elevated in the past 3 years, because there was a few places that we've tried before in the beginning of the journey, and we're like, it's okay. And over the last about year and a half, even the people that we were like, yeah, it's all right, the new stuff that they have coming out, they've just really like honed in on what they're doing and how to make it. And it's been pretty darn good here lately. Yeah,
I think North Carolina's got some really, it's got some good farmland. They can they have the opportunity to produce a lot of the materials that you need to create these spirits. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people are really honing in on the craft, and they're doing they're doing an excellent job of creating, spirits that can compete in the market with some of the, more known brands.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing too that you guys are doing that's very smart is not just coming out with your own stuff after a year or two, knowing that it's going to be hot, knowing that it's not going to have the right like maturity on it, but going, hey, you know what? We have this stuff waiting in the back. Don't worry. Our stuff's coming out from start to finish, but we have used our intellect and ability to choose the right stuff, to do the right blending, to make sure it's resting in the right barrels, that this is what you can expect from us, and start off with a better foot as opposed to like, hey, here's something that's been aging for 6 months.
I mean, I'm not trying to be critical, but I do think whenever a small distillery kind of gets started, I think there is an inclination, which is completely justifiable, to kind of rush to market because you're trying to recoup the investment that you have to get things into the store and get it into people's hands.
Right.
I'm really happy that Tina and the production team have taken their time. They've really honed their craft, and they didn't really open up their sales territory until they felt like they were ready. Right. Because I think that kind of consideration and that kind of that thoughtfulness, I think it shows through in the product. I think you can see that it's a group of people that took what they were doing very seriously, and I'm really happy that they did that. And I think you can see it in the reflection in the product.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
For sure. So it is in local ABC stores currently. Where exactly is the headquarters? You said in Durham?
We're in downtown Durham, right off Foster Street by the old Durham Bulls baseball field.
Okay.
Literally the back of our production facility, you can see into right field. You can look right into the old baseball field where they filmed the movie and did all that stuff back in the 80s and 90s. Right. But yeah, the Durham Bulls that's the name of the bourbon is Bronze Bull. Yeah. We're from Bull City. So, that's even the names of our spirits has a North Carolina connection. Every single one of them is a different brand, and every brand has a story that you can tell, which is really fun. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I was sitting there thinking, like, in general, everybody has a story to tell. So I was just curious, especially because at my job, because I work at Reed's. We're family owned, locally owned and operated. And it's always nice when people can come in and I can offer them suggestions. Like, oh, I'm just in town for a little bit. I'm like, oh, well, have you tried this local piece? And we try and rotate out because we offer spirits every once in a while for events. And I always try and rotate and find another really good local whiskey, vodka, rum, and gin. So each season I try and rotate and add something new. So I'm happy that this is out so I can add that into our rotation. Yeah,
that's definitely a conversation that I've had with like event spaces, golf courses, places that get used as like venues.
Yeah.
I kind of had this idea of just like having a North Carolina package included in their presentation to potential, weddings or whatever the case may be, whatever the venue is being used for. Here's our lowest tier, here's our higher tier, and then here's a North Carolina tier.
Yeah.
And I think that's just it's another way to keep things local and to keep it centralized in North Carolina. Because, this is a destination not just for living, but also for tourism.
Right.
So you get that opportunity to also introduce some people like, hey, all of these products are North Carolina made products, and it's an option for you to have. Yeah. I think it's a really fun thing to have that option. The Brooklyn Arts Center, for example, I've attended 3 weddings there. I've lived here for 3 years, and I've attended 3 weddings at that space in general. And we got to do some events with them and talk to, the manager of the facility. Mm-hmm. And he, I pitched that idea to him, and he was like, that's something we would absolutely love to do. That's so, awesome. Seeing that reciprocated out in the world and is pretty fun. Like seeing people, want, go to any bar in town. What's the beer that's always on draft? It's Tropical Lightning. Yes. Everyone knows. And like it's, Wilmington, there's probably 25 breweries here. There's 3 distilleries. Right. There's wine country not too far from here. There's wine producers. So yeah, it's nice to kind of have the option. I would rather keep my money going to local producers than to big national or international brands. Of course, I would love to, keep things local.
I'm surprised it took that long. for someone to pitch the idea of like, hey, you should do a North Carolina drink package.
Right.
Because every time I look at like menus with my friends and family, like people getting married, it's like there's always like a low country boil option for like an event, or do you want a North Carolina barbecue option? And I'm like, you have the high end like steak and crab legs or something like that. The meals are already packaged. Why don't we have a drink package that's also localized?
It's just hopefully it's something we see more of. I would love to, like I said, keep things centralized here in North Carolina. I mean, I know I'm not a original North Carolinian. I know I moved here a couple of years ago, but if I live somewhere, I would love to support the people that are producing things that are in this state. And so hopefully we see more of that.
We were talking about beers and local beers and stuff. Last year, I had a work meeting it was right outside of LA. And I went to a couple different bars and I was like, so what's local? And they just like looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, you don't have any local breweries or distilleries around here. And they're like,
I'm trying to think. And like,
you can have Bud Light. I was like,
no, it's a bunch of like Delta 8, like cannabis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was plenty of
producing
distilleries out there.
Yeah.
Or distributors out there for sure. But there was not many.
I mean, yeah, if you go a little bit more north in California, kind of toward the Russian River area.
Right, yeah.
I think that's where Pliny the Elder, like it's a very famous IPA that people, try and get their hands on. But yeah, that's more northern. I think in Southern California, I'm trying to think if there's like,
because
there was a San Diego brewery that I liked, but I think they shut down.
Oh yeah, they didn't have anything from San Diego when I was out there. They were like, yeah, you can get any domestic that you want. I
think it was called Green Flash.
Okay.
And San Diego. And I thought they opened up an East Coast distribution place in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And I think they overexpanded. Sierra Nevada did something, Sierra Nevada's got their spot in Asheville, Sierra Nevada's in California. But that's weird that they wouldn't have like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
I know.
You think that's a California staple.
Exactly.
Or was it Anchor out of San Francisco?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that was the original. They call that the original craft brewery. So it's kind of surprising that they don't have those in a place in LA. That's bizarre.
Right. And I went to like a few different places and I was like, okay, I'll just get a Yingling, I guess. All right.
One of Pennsylvania's finest.
Yes, which is where I'm from. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Now, see, you're supporting your home state.
Yep. Gotta get there somehow. So we talked a lot about Liberty and Plenty. So a little bit about you. What got you into the spirits industry and made you want to kind of pursue this right now?
Well, I always worked in the service industry ever since I got out of college. I used to work for a restaurant group out of Oklahoma. And I've done every job you can think of in the service industry. I've been a dishwasher all the way up to a GM. I've done everything in between. Security guard, bartender, server, you name it, I've done it.
Yeah.
I moved out to North Carolina. I tried to get into change careers, and I moved out to North Carolina because I got a job offer out here. But I always kind of had the itch to kind of get back into the service side, but I definitely didn't miss the hours or the uncertainty about where my money was coming from.
For sure. Right.
And then, if you're a manager, the pay's not great and the hours are insane.
Yeah.
So, shout out to any person who's working in the service industry right now. You guys are brave, tough people. Yep. But I kind of wanted to get back into the service side of things, but I wanted to have a little bit more certainty in the pay and what I was doing and have more normalized hours. And so I started looking at sales jobs for the alcohol industry. And, I wish I could say it was something more interesting than I saw this job posted on Indeed, but that is what happened. I saw this job posted. I applied for it. I went through a couple of interviews with the ownership team in Durham, a couple of Zoom interviews. And then the final one was when I actually drove up to Durham, got to see the facility, taste the spirits for the first time. And I was like, I think I told them I would be a very bad used car salesman. It's like, if I don't believe in the product, I'm not going to be able to sell it. So when I drank it and tasted all of them and realized the high quality spirits that Liberty and Plenty was producing, I was like, okay, I can definitely do this because I can pitch this because I believe in it.
Right.
And that was a little under a year ago. I think I started with them in May like early May of 2024.
Yeah.
And I've been with them for the last few months.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know you also mentioned that there was a cocktail bar that's on the, I guess, connected to where the distillery
It's on the
is, right?
front of the distillery.
Okay.
It's small, but it's a really nice cocktail bar, and they make some really impressive stuff there.
That's what I was going to ask, because there's a few places that I've been. They're like, oh, yeah, we have a cocktail bar. And I'm like, you could maybe call this a tasting room.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds like it's an actual cocktail bar where
Yes.
they're making cocktails.
Yeah, and it's not just Liberty and Plenty Spirits. I mean, they also it's a full-fledged bar. They have other spirits.
nice.
I mean, obviously we promote our stuff there as well, but it's a full-service bar, and we have a very impressive bartending team. They come up with, seasonal cocktail menus, spring, summer, fall, winter. They do it all, and then they run specials throughout the week. I think I don't want to say it because I might be wrong about what day. I don't live in Durham. I don't go there very often. But yeah, I think they have like $7 espresso martinis on one day. They have live music, and I think they're only closed Monday and Tuesdays. But other than that, I mean, if you ever want to go in downtown Durham and grab a really nice cocktail, and they have patio space. I don't know if you guys have been to Durham recently, but it's having the definition of a glow up. I don't remember what it was like before. People have told me stories because I wasn't here.
Right.
But in the last couple of years, they have built a lot of housing. The bar and restaurant scene there is incredible. Like it's some of the best food that every time I've tried somewhere new, and the food is incredible. So, Durham's doing some really fun stuff. I think they were always kind of Raleigh's kind of forgotten brother. It's called Raleigh Durham. Everyone's Raleigh, but Durham is also doing some really cool stuff. So every time I've gone there, I've been there a handful of times, and I find something new every single time I'm there.
Nice.
So it's fun to be a part of that. And that's a great way to kind of engage your customer base, is by having a cocktail bar where they're just as passionate about what you're consuming as you are.
Right.
And that's a really big thing about us. It's very community driven, and it's very we're excited about spirits. I think that's a big factor in what makes us kind of a cut above, or, different from maybe some of they're just the passion for it.
Right.
It's really exciting to see all that.
Do you think the new Wilson facility is going to have a cocktail bar too, or is that just straight production?
I mean, I hope it does. It's a pretty big facility, but again, we want to be involved. We're in Wilson. We want to be involved with Wilson. They're building a new baseball field. They're having a AAA team come in. I think
that's neat.
Yeah, I want to say they're with the Milwaukee Brewers. I think they're the affiliate of the Milwaukee Brewers, but they're going to be called the Wilson Warbirds. So they're building this whole new baseball field. They're kind of revitalizing downtown Wilson.
That's sweet.
And yeah, and the interesting thing I think I learned about Wilson, I didn't know that, but it's the halfway point on I-95 between New York and Miami. If you're driving from, north to south, right there in the middle.
Cool.
Yeah. So North Carolina is the halfway point. Wilson, North Carolina.
Explains a lot.
Yeah. Get a lot of snowbirds.
Yes.
Right.
Because we're coming up near the end of our time. Question for you. What is one thing that you're looking forward to within the brand here in the next year or so?
I mean, I know they're producing more stuff there.
Yeah.
Our production team's hard at work creating some new stuff. But I think what I'm excited about the most is just the growth of the existing brands. Getting Slate Belt Vodka, Cap and Cane Rum, Whirly Garden Gin, or Bronze Bull Bourbon in more bars, more restaurants, more venues, more golf courses.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting people in touch with the brand, I think, is really what's exciting, because I think we produce some really high quality spirits. I think that we make things for everyone, for any kind of drinker, any kind of, if you're more social, or if you're a bourbon fanatic, or whatever the case may be, if you're somewhere in the middle, I think we make something for everybody. And I'm really excited to see people kind of get introduced to it and have it become part of their home bar, or a part of their rotation of spirits whenever they are having guests or a dinner party or whatever the case may be. It's just kind of just expanding Liberty and Plenty to all parts of North Carolina. And kind of, giving people an alternative to the big national brands.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm most excited about, just seeing the brand grow.
I look forward to it. Mostly because I just like local stuff now.
Yeah.
I hit the point where I'm like, I'm going to shop local for 98% of the stuff I do.
That's how I prefer to do it too. I mean, there's a convenience to finding the big national brands. You can find them anywhere, and that's for anything, not just spirits. That's for, any kind of thing you can think of. There's probably a cheap national brand for, that's very easy to access. Right. But if you actually get involved in your community, I think people will be very surprised to find out that someone makes hot sauces. They make spirits. They make, every kind of thing that you can think of. You can be found locally. And so I would prefer to keep my money in how I spend it here. Yeah. Exactly. Because Wilmington's a really great place, and North Carolina's a great place. And I've really enjoyed living here the last 4.5 years. So
the good thing about the ABC stores too is you can just walk straight on over to the North Carolina local section, and almost all of them.
I think a lot of people don't know that a North Carolina section exists, but when they find out, they're just like, "Wait, all of this is made locally?" Mm-hmm. It's a conversation.
Yeah,
it's a conversation. We do ABC store tastings. We do small. You can give small samples in the ABC stores. Usually it's a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday from like 4 to 7 o'clock. You'll see a producer is in there, and they're giving out samples of like 4 different spirits. And the conversation, I was like, yeah, we're right over there in the North Carolina section. And they're like, they look at me funny. And I'm just like, the North Carolina section is right there. And there's this big wall. Yeah. And it's full. I mean, there's spirits from all over, Kinston, Asheville, Charlotte, like look anywhere you want. There's a spirit made there. So it's funny to that's kind of the part I'm talking about. That's the education of consumers. You kind of let them know like this thing exists, right? And it's really good, and the price points are very competitive with the stuff that you normally drink, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at Slate Belt vodka, it's priced at slightly under Tito's price point. Oh wow! So yeah, okay. like it's local, it's good, and it's cheaper. There's literally no reason not to try it. I mean, just for if it's not your thing, that's fine, but you should at least try.
Right. Never thought I'd be shouting out the ABC, especially for New Hanover County, but a shout out to the ABC, New Hanover County specifically. They do have an amazing Facebook group. If you haven't been or added yourself to it, you need to. They have all of the upcoming tastings going on. If you are a bourbon fan, it lets you know when the next drop is coming and which location and how to sign up for the allocated bourbons and whiskeys out there. So I think they're actually doing a very good job doing that, especially after what the ABC in general kind of went through earlier. I think they're doing a very good job trying to come back and making them more for the people. So
yeah, and I cannot speak highly enough about how easy the New Hanover County ABC board had, like how easy they made it for us. They have expectations. They want you to sell your product. They want to set you up for success. Mm-hmm. And that's very evident by the way that they communicate and the way that they do things. I mean, I know that there are some people that aren't a huge fan of the ABC system and, having it's so tightly state controlled. Right. But what makes it easier is having a board they also love local too. They want to support local as well. And they have been so generous and easy to work with. And I appreciate them to no end.
Yeah, that was the one thing I really wanted to kind of get out to is people look down on the ABC because it's state run. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure other counties do different things that are similar too. But New Hanover County, I feel like just really stepped it up.
They really have. And I mean, we've worked with a lot of boards. Obviously, we're in a lot of different counties: Mecklenburg, Wake, Moore, Cumberland, Carteret. We're all over the place. And they're all different. They all operate kind of on a different way, but they, more often than not, they are there to kind of set you up for success rather than they don't want to see anybody fail. They wouldn't bring a product in that they didn't think could, live in that market, be in that space. So, they're supportive, and especially when it's local. Right. So I think that's the next step is just us expanding beyond, to a place where we're not a local, Virginia, South Carolina, Florida. There's definitely a lot of opportunity for us to grow, and there's some really, really fun things ahead. So I'm very excited to keep working with Liberty and Plenty and keep promoting the brand and expand us not just in North Carolina, but other places as well.
Yeah. Since Chris changed up his last question, I'm going to change up mine too. So, and I stole this question from, there's a local group called 1 Million Cups for small business owners. Then they want you to kind of show what you're doing and how the community can help you. And that's one of the big questions, is how can our local community help you personally and Liberty and Plenty?
Well, I think we kind of hit the nail on the head. It's whenever you walk into a bar or a restaurant, you can ask not just for beer, but for spirits as well. What's local? What's new? And, if you want to get a cocktail made with a local product, if you want to buy a bottle from your local ABC, from the North Carolina section, I think that's really the best thing that we can do as consumers is you kind of direct where your money goes. Yeah. You direct what products you buy and who you support by, your purchases. Mm-hmm. So, as a community, whenever we are shopping in the grocery store, in the ABC store, or if you're just over in the cargo district, there's always an option to look and buy local. And I think people understand that more and more now, because I think community is really kind of driving who's getting bought where. Right. And New Hanover has such a phenomenal community, and they're really good about keeping things local and keeping things in-house. And I think that's the best thing they can do, is just keep doing exactly that. Go to your local boutique or wherever you decide to kind of spend your time and spend your money. Keep it in Wilmington.
Yeah. I think every day, every single one of us has the opportunity to vote with our feet and our dollars. And I think that's what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me. This was really fun. I mean, all I really wanted was for you guys to do an episode where you featured our product maybe and drank it. And then you asked hey, can we interview you? And I was like, why? But I hope that everyone's entertained and had a good time and listened to this podcast. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because we were talking about just going and tasting it. And I was like, why just taste it when we can actually talk about it? Let's do it. If we're going to do it right.
Yeah, well, I hope that I was a good face for the brand, because Liberty and Plenty is doing some incredible stuff, and I'm very excited to work for them and to push their product to other people and to expand people's knowledge and their palates, and that's really fun. It's the best thing about doing this job. It's all the people you get to meet along the way.
Right. Well, I think you did a great job.
Thank you. So, Thank you guys. Oh man. Well, I hope my bosses feel the same way.
Right. We'll send it out to them.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening to the episode. Shout out to the Kent Street Podcast Studio. And, we'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.